Imagine a world without words. No stories whispered around campfires, no conversations shared between friends, no songs celebrating victories or mourning losses. A world of silence where thoughts remain trapped inside minds, unable to bridge the gap between individuals. How did our ancestors transform mere sounds into meaning? How did they create the first languages that would forever change what it meant to be human? What makes us so fundamentally different from every other species on Earth? Today, we're unraveling one of humanity's greatest mysteries, the origin of language itself. Thousands of years ago, early humans began communicating in ways that would alter the course of history. Language didn't just allow us to share ideas, it empowered us to build complex societies, create rich cultures, and ultimately master our environment in ways no other species has managed. Language is the invisible force behind everything we've accomplished as a species. But how did this revolution begin? What were the first tentative steps toward verbal communication? Was it an evolutionary leap or a gradual development over millennia? Did it emerge from necessity during hunts, from the desire to share knowledge with future generations, or perhaps from something more primal, like song? As we journey back through time, we'll explore competing hypotheses about how language emerged. We'll examine the fascinating archaeological evidence that provides glimpses into our ancestors' minds. And we'll witness how the power of words transformed small bands of hunter-gatherers into builders of pyramids, composers of epics, and explorers of distant worlds. This is not just a story about words, it's the story of how we became human. If you're passionate about history and eager to unlock the mysteries of ancient civilizations, hit the like button right now, subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel, and make sure you never miss an episode. Our journey into humanity's past is just beginning. The question of how language first emerged has fascinated scholars for centuries. How did we go from simple sounds to complex communication systems with grammar, vocabulary, and syntax? Let's explore some of the most compelling theories. Some researchers believe language evolved from simple gestures and sounds, similar to those used by animals. If you've ever watched chimpanzees communicate in the wild, you've seen something that might resemble our earliest attempts at language. They use specific calls to warn of danger, express emotion, and coordinate group activities. Perhaps our ancestors began similarly, gradually refining these simple signals into something more sophisticated. Other scholars propose that language emerged from necessity, a survival tool. Imagine early humans hunting massive mammoths. Such dangerous pursuits required coordination and planning that simple gestures couldn't achieve. The need to work together, to strategize, you circle around the back while we approach from the front, may have pushed our ancestors to develop more precise ways of communicating. Then there's the knowledge transfer theory. As humans began creating tools and mastering fire around 400,000 years ago, they needed to pass these crucial survival skills to the next generation. Think about it. Teaching someone to craft a spear or start a fire is infinitely easier with words than with gestures alone. The desire to preserve and share knowledge might have been the catalyst for developing more sophisticated communication. Perhaps the most fascinating hypothesis is the song theory. This suggests that music and rhythm were the precursors to verbal communication. Our ancestors may have first communicated through melodic sounds, rhythmic patterns, and harmonies, more song than speech. Some linguists point to the musicality still present in all modern languages, the rising and falling tones, the rhythms of syllables, the emotional quality of speech, as evidence that language might have emerged from song. Here's something remarkable to consider. Despite there being over 7,000 languages spoken across the globe today, linguists believe they may all stem from a single mother tongue called proto-human. Just imagine, at some point in our distant past, all humans spoke the same language. As communities spread across continents and oceans, their languages evolved separately, gradually transforming into the diverse tapestry of languages we hear today. This shared linguistic ancestry connects all of humanity in a profound way. The words you're hearing right now, the conversations you have with friends, the stories your grandparents told you, all of these trace back to those first meaningful sounds our ancestors made, perhaps around a fire under the stars, hundreds of thousands of years ago. But how can we prove these theories about language origins when words leave no fossils? This is where archaeology and anthropology offer us fascinating clues, piecing together the puzzle of our ancestors' communication. Cave paintings dating back 40,000 years tell stories without words. When archaeologists discovered the breathtaking bison and horse images in the Lascaux caves of France, they weren't just admiring prehistoric art, they were witnessing early human communication. These carefully crafted images suggest our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were sharing experiences, beliefs, and knowledge across generations. Think about it. These paintings remained meaningful long after their creators were gone, perhaps the earliest form of writing our species developed. The tools our ancestors crafted also speak volumes. The complexity of stone implements found across Africa and Europe shows evidence of teaching and learning. Creating a perfectly balanced spear or a finely worked hand axe requires instruction. Try making one without verbal guidance, and you'll quickly appreciate how language must have accelerated technological development. Archaeologists have traced how tool-making techniques spread across continents, suggesting communication networks spanning vast distances even in ancient times. Perhaps the most direct evidence comes from human remains themselves. In 1989, archaeologists made an extraordinary discovery at the Kebara Cave in Israel, a 60,000-year-old hyoid bone belonging to a Neanderthal. This tiny horseshoe-shaped bone supports the tongue and is crucial for human speech. The Neanderthal hyoid was virtually identical to our own, suggesting our evolutionary cousins might have had the physical capability for complex vocal communication long before modern humans dominated the planet. Brain endocasts, impressions of the brain preserved in skulls, provide another tantalizing clue. The Broca's and Wernicke's areas, regions of our brain dedicated to language production and comprehension, leave subtle marks on the inside of the skull. Studies of fossil hominids show these areas began expanding significantly around 2 million years ago, hinting at the gradual development of language capabilities. Anthropological studies of isolated tribes reveal how language continues to evolve in surprising ways. The Piraha people of the Amazon developed a language without numbers or color terms, but with incredibly complex verb forms. Even more remarkable is the case of Nicaraguan Sign Language, which emerged spontaneously in the 1970s when deaf children with no common language were brought together in a school. Within a single generation, they created a fully functional, grammatically complex language from scratch, a modern window into how language might have first emerged. When researchers studied the whistled language of shepherds in the mountains of La Gomera in the Canary Islands, they discovered an ingenious adaptation to communicate across deep valleys, transforming Spanish into melodic whistles that carry for miles. This shows how humans adapt language to their environment, just as our ancestors must have done tens of thousands of years ago. These discoveries, these fragments of our past, may never give us the complete story of language origins. But like detectives at an ancient crime scene, archaeologists and anthropologists continue piecing together this profound mystery of what makes us uniquely human. Language wasn't merely a cultural achievement, it was a survival imperative, perhaps the most powerful tool our species ever developed. To truly appreciate this, put yourself in the shoes of our ancestors 20,000 years ago during the last ice age. Imagine trying to coordinate a mammoth hunt without words. There you stand with your tribe, facing a 12-foot-tall beast with enormous tusks that could impale you in an instant. Your survival depends on perfect coordination. Some hunters need to create a distraction, others must position themselves downwind, while others prepare the ambush. Now try orchestrating this complex dance using only grunts and gestures. Nearly impossible, isn't it? Language allowed our ancestors to plan, strategize, and execute with precision. They could assign specific roles, describe the terrain ahead, warn of dangers unseen, and adapt their plans when circumstances changed. The mammoth is charging toward the river, communicates far more information than any alarm gesture ever could. But survival required more than just hunting. Early humans faced predators, harsh weather, disease, and competing tribes. Language became the alarm system that warned of approaching dangers. Lion tracks to the east, or those berries made the children sick. A simple sentence could mean the difference between life and death. Perhaps most crucially, language enabled humans to share accumulated knowledge. Imagine a tribal elder describing which plants cure fever, which roots are poisonous, or how to navigate by the stars. This transmission of wisdom, impossible without complex language, meant each generation didn't have to start from scratch. Knowledge could build upon knowledge, creating a collective intelligence far greater than any individual could develop in a single lifetime. When climate changed dramatically 11,000 years ago at the end of the Ice Age, humans had to adapt quickly to new environments. Those with language could discuss solutions, describe distant lands with better conditions, and organize migrations across vast territories. Groups without sophisticated communication would have struggled to respond effectively to such rapid environmental changes. Archaeological evidence shows that as language developed, human populations exploded and spread across the globe. From the frozen Arctic to scorching deserts, humans thrived where other species couldn't, not because we were stronger or faster, but because we could talk, plan, and solve problems together. In many ways, language was the original survival technology, one that made all other technologies possible. Without it, we might never have tamed fire, invented agriculture, or built the first cities. We might not be here at all. Did you know that all languages might share a common origin? Fascinating, isn't it? If you're enjoying this dive into humanity's linguistic beginnings, hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves exploring our ancient past. Subscribe to The Dawn of Humankind for more incredible stories about our earliest ancestors. And we'd love to hear from you. What language do you think might have been the first to emerge? Perhaps an early form of clicking sounds, or maybe melodic tones? Drop your theories in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going about humanity's first conversations. As language evolved and became more sophisticated, something remarkable happened. It transformed from a mere survival tool into the very foundation of civilization itself. Language became the invisible architecture upon which all human societies were built. Think about what happened around 5,000 years ago in places like Mesopotamia and Egypt. As settlements grew into cities, humans needed systems to organize thousands of people living together. Enter written language, perhaps humanity's most revolutionary invention after speech itself. Those first simple pictographs scratched onto clay tablets in ancient Sumer weren't just curious symbols, they were the birth of recorded history, of contracts, of laws that could outlive their creators. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest legal texts from around 1,750 years before Christ, wouldn't have been possible without language. If a man has stolen, he shall be put to death. Simple words. Yet they transformed chaos into order, establishing the rule of law rather than the rule of the strongest. Language gave us justice. But language didn't just help us survive and create order. It allowed us to dream, to imagine worlds beyond our own. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written nearly 4,000 years ago, tells of a hero's quest for immortality. Homer's Iliad brings to life the rage of Achilles and the tragedy of Troy. These weren't mere entertainment. They were explorations of what it means to be human, examinations of mortality, honor, love, and betrayal. Through stories, humans processed their deepest fears and highest aspirations. Language made religion possible too. The ability to discuss abstract concepts like the afterlife, divine beings, and moral codes transformed spiritual beliefs from simple reverence into complex theological systems. The pyramids of Egypt, towering monuments to pharaohs who would journey to the afterlife, weren't just architectural marvels. They were physical manifestations of ideas that could only exist because humans could talk about things they couldn't see. As societies grew more complex, so did language. Consider ancient Greece, where philosophical discourse created entirely new ways of thinking. When Socrates asked, "What is justice?" he wasn't just uttering words, he was using language to examine the very concepts that structured society. This linguistic innovation led to democracy, scientific inquiry, and formal logic, the building blocks of Western civilization. Fast forward to the scientific revolution, when precise language allowed humans to describe the natural world with unprecedented accuracy. Newton's laws of motion, written in mathematical language, transformed our understanding of the universe. Later, Einstein's theories of relativity, complex ideas conveyed through symbols and words, revolutionized physics yet again. Without language sophisticated enough to express these concepts, such discoveries would have remained unthinkable. Even today, our greatest achievements depend on language. The computer you're using to watch this video functions through programming languages, coded instructions that are, at their heart, sophisticated communication systems. The internet itself is humanity's latest language revolution, connecting billions of people through shared communication networks. But perhaps most profoundly, language shapes our very identity, both individually and collectively. The words we use to describe ourselves and others create the boundaries of our social world. I am American. I am a teacher. We are a family. These simple statements draw lines that define who belongs where, creating the intricate social tapestry of human civilization. Language doesn't just connect us, it defines who we are as a species. We are Homo sapiens, wise man, but perhaps we should be called Homo loquens, speaking man, because it is through words that our wisdom finds expression, and through expression that we have transformed the world. Despite language's crucial role in our story, not all languages have survived the relentless march of time. Like species in an evolutionary landscape, languages emerge, flourish, and sometimes vanish entirely. Consider Latin, once the powerful voice of an empire that stretched across 3 continents. The language of Cicero and Caesar, of law and literature, is now considered dead, though it lives on through its descendants, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. When you say exit or etc., you're breathing life into ancient Roman words that have outlived their original speakers by 2,000 years. Even more dramatic is the fate of Sumerian, the oldest written language we know. 4,000 years ago, it was the sophisticated tongue of astronomers, poets, and priests in ancient Mesopotamia. Today, no one speaks Sumerian as their native language. It vanished completely, leaving behind only clay tablets that took scholars centuries to decipher. The story of language extinction isn't just ancient history. It's happening right now at an alarming rate. Of the 7,000 languages spoken today, linguists estimate that one disappears every 2 weeks. By the end of this century, we may lose half of all currently spoken languages. Take Ayak, a Native American language from Alaska. When Marie Smith Jones passed away in 2008, she took with her the last fluent voice of her ancestral tongue, a language with unique words for the specific blue of glacial ice and distinctive expressions for the relationship between humans and nature that exist in no other language on Earth. Each language extinction represents an incalculable loss, not just of words and grammar, but of unique ways of seeing the world. The Hopi language of Arizona structures time differently than English, without tenses in the conventional sense. When we lose such languages, we lose entire perspectives on reality itself. Why is this happening? The forces of globalization, mass media, and economic pressure push smaller language communities toward dominant languages like English, Mandarin, and Spanish. Children grow up learning that their future opportunities depend on mastering these global tongues, often at the expense of their ancestral languages. Yet amid this linguistic extinction event, something remarkable is also happening. Technology is preserving languages as never before. The Maori of New Zealand have created digital tools and immersive learning environments that have helped revitalize their language. The Hebrew language, which for centuries was used only in religious contexts, was successfully revived as an everyday spoken language in Israel, perhaps the only example in history of a dead language being fully resurrected. So what does the future hold? Will we eventually all speak one universal language, as some predict? The evidence suggests something more nuanced. While English currently serves as a global lingua franca, much as Latin did in medieval Europe, history shows that dominant languages tend to splinter into new variants. American English, Nigerian English, and Indian English are already developing in different directions. 500 years from now, these might be as different from each other as Italian is from Spanish. Artificial intelligence is transforming communication too. Real-time translation technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Perhaps our great-grandchildren won't need to learn multiple languages at all. Their devices will instantly translate any language they encounter, preserving linguistic diversity while enabling universal communication. The most likely future isn't one universal language, but rather a world where global languages coexist with local tongues, where a businesswoman might conduct international negotiations in English, but tell bedtime stories to her children in Cherokee or Quechua. Language has always been humanity's most adaptable tool. Whatever comes next, whether it's brain interfaces, enhanced virtual reality, or something we can't yet imagine, we can be certain that humans will continue finding new ways to connect, to share ideas, and to tell the stories that make us who we are. The origins of human language remain one of history's most captivating mysteries, a puzzle that continues to intrigue scientists, linguists, and historians alike. We may never know with absolute certainty which sounds first carried meaning, or when exactly our ancestors crossed that remarkable threshold from inarticulate vocalizations to true language. Yet as we've explored throughout this journey, one thing stands unquestionably clear. Language was the master key that unlocked humanity's potential. Language transformed us. It elevated us from clever primates struggling for survival into dreamers, thinkers, and builders of entire civilizations. From the first whispered stories around prehistoric fires to the epic poems of Homer, from the earliest written laws of Mesopotamia to the scientific papers of Einstein, language has been the invisible force behind every human achievement. Think about it. Without language, the Great Pyramid would never have risen from the Egyptian sands. The Roman Empire would never have stretched across continents. The Renaissance would never have flowered. And you wouldn't be watching this video right now. In many ways, language is the true miracle of human existence, not just a tool we use, but the very lens through which we perceive reality itself. As we stand at the frontier of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and global connectivity, we must ask ourselves, how will language continue to shape us in the centuries to come? Will technology bring us closer to universal understanding, or will we find new ways to preserve the beautiful diversity of human expression? Will we develop entirely new forms of communication that our ancestors couldn't have imagined? Whatever the future holds, the story of language, our story, continues to unfold, from those first meaningful utterances in the distant past to whatever comes next. We remain the speaking species, forever transformed by our remarkable ability to turn sound into meaning and meaning into worlds. If you've enjoyed this exploration of humanity's oldest and greatest invention, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who appreciates the power of words. Subscribe to The Dawn of Humankind for more fascinating journeys into ancient history, human evolution, and the foundations of civilization. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. What linguistic mystery would you like us to unravel next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation together. Until next time, remember that every word you speak connects you to a tradition that stretches back to the very dawn of humanity.